Hi, this is Ed back again with another video from the Outer Light channel on the Hive blockchain from BitChute and 3 speakers. We get right into it here in regarding Act Blue and the portal, which has been used as a funding mechanism or funding portal for lots of organizations. I'm going to get into that in this video. If you're wondering what that video is playing on screen in the mini TV, that's a satire there in regarding Johnny Cochran and regarding the O.J. Simpson trial that was on Saturday Night Live back in 1995. The actual paraphernalia he's wearing there is rather interesting. I'll play that video a bit later though. Before I get into it, I just want to point out I did have another supporter video which came out yesterday regarding ideological subversion, the new normal. It's about an hour long, goes into a whole bunch of things, including a video there of Edward Griffin saying something really interesting, as well as tweets by Ice Cube, so on and so forth, as we go into doublethink, or at least that's the reference to cognitive dissonance, which laid out by George Orwell there in the novel 1984. Of course, you can watch that at subscribestar.com/theouterlight, patreon.com/theouterdark, and if you want to become one of my supporters, you can always do it there if you feel like it. Let's get right into it. Look, he's shocked. Look at the little gremlin there. Remember the 80s? Those were some member berries. I'm going to go into Act Blue here. Now, I've got a video recorded a bit earlier, which I'm going to play, just a screen record. I just want to point out, here are some of the main details if you want to go back and reference what's in the video there. Let's just play it here and I'll be back afterwards. Okay, so here I am in a browser in New Zealand. Just want to show you something very quickly here. If you type in Black Lives Matter, of course, there's lots of news articles given what's happening around the world. Here you can see the conversation here. Black Lives Matter outrage must drive police reform in New Zealand. And if you're in the UK, Australia, Canada, so on and so forth, you probably see similar articles. Whatever your opinion is on Black Lives Matter. But the thing about this is, who collects in regarding the payment portal, or who is the payment portal for Black Lives Matter? Well, if you go to the Black Lives Matter website like this, as you can see, blacklivesmatter.com, which is supposed to be a global movement, of course, has gained a lot of steam after what happened in regarding George Floyd. If you click the donate button here, for an example, you see this up here. It says secure.actblue.com. What is Act Blue? What is secure.actblue.com? And of course, if you want to make a donation, I just typed in 30 before when I was going through this, you can do that from any country around the world. It's said to be a global organization, so of course that probably makes sense. But the question about this is, if you go over to Act Blue, which is secure.actblue.com, they are a payment portal which has an affiliation to the Democratic Party. Well, it has an affiliation to the Democratic Party in the United States, but they are directly benefiting there because they're taking a 5% fee, as you can see here, and anyone around the world can actually donate to this. In fact, here you go. They take how much money does Act Blue collect from its portal, and you can see it's about 4%. That stacks up in regarding the amount of money that was raised, which we'll get into in a moment. My question is this. They take 4%, okay? PayPal takes about 2.2%. Of course, that goes up and down depending upon the year, for charitable organizations or non-profits, which Black Lives Matter states that they are. So why is Black Lives Matter using a payment processor like Act Blue affiliated with the Democratic Party if its rates are double what PayPal would charge, for an example, which apparently is a more independent platform, if that even exists these days? But you can see a direct chain there. Directly from Black Lives Matter donates to Act Blue, as you can see over here. Well, there's their Twitter, for example, donating to using the donation portal of Act Blue itself instead of PayPal, which runs at half the processing fees. Now here's Act Blue. They have raised, or this payment processor has processed over $20 million in donations, half of which happened after what happened to George Floyd. 20 million. So if you take 4% of 20 million, that's 800,000. PayPal, roughly half of that, would be 400,000 in processing fees instead of 800,000. Why are they using Act Blue? Because there's a close association there. That's why. And it's really interesting in regarding how you could possibly set up a lot of zombie banks, zombie donations, because the thing about it is small donations have no transparency around them in regarding having to say who the donor was, at least in United States law. Quite interesting, isn't it? And of course, the donations, they add up. As you can see here, Bento O'Rourke, who completely failed in his campaign, completely failed, raised $45 million through Act Blue. Now here's the question. If you do not have to disclose small donations, and they can come from a multiple source around the world, let's say, then how much of that money is foreign money that's funding Bento O'Rourke? Think about that. And there lies the old rabbit hole. Okay, so here you can see that they've raised, in 2019, Act Blue raised roughly $1 billion. What's 4% of 1,000 million? It's a lot of money, okay? It's a lot of money. And why are all these institutions using Act Blue instead of places like other more independent platforms that are not associated with the Democratic Party itself? So here is one of the original founders here, Benjamin, and if you go to the Benjamin Twitter, of course, you can see all these things here. For instance, this is retweeted. This is a disgrace to the richest democracy in the world. No one should have to wait in line or risk their health to vote. It's 6 hours ago. At the same time, Black Lives Matter and the massive protests. My point isn't that you shouldn't be able to protest or not. I've said this multiple times. I believe in protest. Even if there is an epidemic, you should be able to protest yourself. If you want to, if it's like a high mortality rate and you want to risk your life, you should be allowed to do that. But the point is, you can't say two diametrically opposed or support two diametrically opposed beliefs at the same time. Anyway, that is pretty much it. Just wanted to point that out, that I thought it was interesting that Black Lives Matter uses a payment processor that has literally almost double the price and processing fees than something like a PayPal, and stays with Act Blue instead. So this affiliated Democratic entity itself, and here you have a New York Times article just to show in 2007. Here is Mr. Benjamin here. Rian, I don't know how to say his last name. The founders of Act Blue back in 2007 say it will raise $100 million in small donations for Democrats. Where does the money come from? Okay, small donations, you don't have to say who's donating the money. So you can donate $5 million and break it up through, I'm just speculating, wild speculation, break it up into small donations and funnel it out. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Of course, decide for yourselves. So there you are, pretty much. I just thought that was interesting, so I'd do a quick video. Of course, I have another supporter video tomorrow coming, and we're going to break away from the news cycle and go into a few Mandela effects and some strange news. Hotop Jesus stated this on Twitter, stating, "This is political blackface." If you've seen all the senators there, and they're wearing something called kento, I think, or kenta clothing there, which is a pattern or fabric. A lot of people from the black community were calling them out over this, saying it was cultural appropriation. I think, of course, you should be able to wear anything you like, but this is white knighting on a level I've never seen before. 8 minutes of silence for George Floyd. Of course, what happened to George Floyd was absolutely terrible, as I stated. It is murder. Okay, if it all went down like that, and those people are being prosecuted in relation to that. But people were calling this out, and it was really interesting because the fact is there's an old Saturday night skit from 1995. I'm going to play it here, see if I can get away with it without copyright. I have transformed it significantly. And that pretty much says the same thing, but this is far, far beyond it. Now, the Saturday night live skit, for context, is regarding Johnny Cochran, the famous lawyer representing O.J. Simpson. So let's take a look at the clip.
I know how he works.
Now the prosecution, Miss Clark, they're insulting you. They're insulting the intelligence and the credibility of this jury. when they imply that we are in some way trying to manipulate a predominantly black jury by my wearing this African tribal tie. That's an insult to this jury, and I am personally offended. Not only on my behalf, but also on behalf of my esteemed colleagues, Mr. Shapiro, Mr. Bailey.
Okay, and there you get the gist of that. I have slowed that down. Of course, you can check out the full skit online. But the point is it's kind of replicated from satire, comedy from the 90s to become reality. And there's a real problem with all of this. It's out of control, in my opinion. And it's gone a long way, as I discussed in my supporter video, from from even when I was talking about ideological subversion back in 2017 or early 2017 into what it is now. Okay, and in 4 years it's going to be far, far worse. Now, a lot of these things are going to disappear when the election cycle ends in the United States, because this is obviously a stratagem being played out for multiple different reasons. Who stands to gain? Well, roll the dice, because it's in every single direction. In the meantime, of course, go and do your own research, decide for yourselves. Maybe you disagree with me. Hey, you know what? That's fair enough. Whatever you do, go out and read and take a look at the information, come to your own conclusions. In the meantime, stay safe. I'll see you all later.